Hi, Jayanth. Good to see you back.
Hi, Leslie. Good to see you again.
Now, before I ask you how was your weekend, I'm going to ask you. You're looking dapper in this shirt. I've rarely seen you in these kind of checkered shirts, and this color also is a little different from what you normally wear.
It's blue and white. It's both blue collared and white collared.
I am no collared.
No collared.
I don't believe in collars.
Yeah. Yeah, I normally don't wear collared shirts just often, but one of those changes today.
So back from all your badminton escapade.
No, midway actually. The weekend, like I was saying, another weekend, another trip outside of Bangalore for a badminton tournament. Siona is actually playing. She won one match on Monday, one today. She has another one at 7:40. I came back, for work and our recording, and I'm not going back.
So, for our viewers and listeners, those who are new to this podcast, Siona is Jayan's daughter, and who's I would be right in saying a state level
Yeah,
badminton
she's
player,
state ranked 8th and national rank 22nd, national
and
level player.
we are referring to the state of Karnataka in India. For those viewers and listeners who are probably in the United States or in some other part of the globe. So that's how it is. Jayant, I think today, I mean, as usual with AI and Gen AI, there are, plethora of announcements.
Announcements,
Yeah,
yes.
but I think two interesting announcements that I probably caught my attention, of course, which are, I would say, to a great extent, I wouldn't say game changers because we had seen them coming,
Yeah,
undoubtedly. But yes, now I think, now that they're out in the open, one, of course, is Microsoft's announcement on the Copilot+
right,
PCs. Now, interestingly, Microsoft doesn't like to refer to it as AI PCs, but we are typically talking about artificial intelligence personal computers, or AI PCs as they are known. Now, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, a traditional PC that we use, the laptops and stuff that we use, typically have central processing units or CPUs that are there. So that's, I mean, we all are used to CPUs, and for over, I mean, I think over so many decades that we are just using CPUs. And then, of course, for gamers, it's always been about graphic processing units or
yeah,
GPUs.
GPUs,
Now
yes,
there's an additional component in it which is known as NPU, the neural processing units.
yeah,
Now, basically, these are AI PC typically would have a CPU, a GPU, and an
NP,
NPU. Now, NPU basically helps accelerate the running of the AI models on the device itself, and which is why we talk about edge computing, or the computing, having the processing power on the device itself, so that you don't have to each and every time access the cloud. So it helps in reducing the latency or the time taken to process, etc., etc. So there are a lot of benefits, which is why I think Microsoft and other things have, I mean, all the other companies are excited about it. And no, Jayant, you're from the hardcore Motorola days. So
yes,
I mean, who better to speak about, these Gen AI smartphones and AI PCs, rather than me, blabbing about it. It's better that you talk about it. We have been talking about, I have the numbers with me. I'll read
right.
out the stats in a few times. But before that, I mean, just give us a sense of, given that kind of transition that we have seen, what exactly is the power that it's going to bring to the enterprise? Because I don't see it personally, benefiting users who are just using it for word processing and normal documents and
No,
etc.
no,
That's probably something that you can shed light on more, both from the point of view of the Gen AI smartphones
right.
and the AI PCs.
Yeah. So if you look at from software tools in the AI space, Microsoft, after partnering with OpenAI, has brought in the AI elements or the Gen AI capability to most of its Office features, and has come up with this concept and idea of Copilot, which is essentially a generative AI, assistant for you to do a bunch of your productivity work that you normally do at office, right? And it's integrated into all your office MS Office tools, your Word, your PowerPoint, your Excel. Now AI is, you can use AI to make presentations. For example, you can use Copilot, right? And Copilot, along with GitHub partnership, you can also use Copilot for coding, right? So a lot of enterprise productivity work is now being AI enabled through Microsoft tools, okay, under the umbrella of Copilot. Copilot again has a bunch of tools under them, right? So you can see this as an evolution of Microsoft Office itself from its older days to its to its AI avatar, and to support that kind of processing, that kind of bandwidth that is required for some of these rich AI enabled tools and productivity tools to work. We need better and stronger and different kind of processes, and that's where NPUs come into picture, the neural processing units. I mean, it's also progression on the hardware side. I mean, we knew, hardware also needs to progress and catch up, and even at the core chipset level, right? I mean, think of this as your feature phones and smartphone days, right? I mean, you had feature phones, earlier phones, you used to just dial in the number, have few contacts stored, send a text message, and then you had feature phones with mobile internet, basic data connectivity, and then came in the smartphones, and then smartphones had processors which were faster and more powerful than our laptops and PCs themselves, but they were also capable of doing so much more. So now with think of a similar evolution in the productivity in the AI, using AI in the PCs and the smartphone space. And that's a kind of evolution that we're seeing, and evolution on the hardware and the chipsets level as well.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say, because I was looking at some of the Gartner and IDC projections. Now, Gartner says that worldwide shipments of AI PCs and Gen AI smartphones are projected to total 295 million units by end of 2024. That's this year.
Right.
This is up from 29 million in 2023, which is almost a 10x rise kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this, this prediction was just given in this February, so it's far off kind of stuff. And of course, then you have the IDC projections. Now, IDC also puts it something like, I think, yeah. So IDC says that shipments of course, they're talking about shipments, not sales. So that's because I think what would be the typical difference between shipments and sales?
Back in the
20%?
day, back in the day it was as high as 60%, but now it's come down to about an average of 35%.
That's
So
what I was
1.35 devices shipped for every one device sold.
Yeah, so I think our viewers and listeners can do the math, take away the straight away 35% and say, okay, these are the numbers. But even then, it's a very significant
it's a high number. So if you're talking about close to 300 million shipped, you're talking about 200 million sold.
Yeah, because even IDC is talking about 50 million units in 2024, the AI PCs. What the number that I gave out for Gartner was AI PCs, Gen AI smartphones combined.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So this puts it as 50 million units in 2024, and 167 by 2027. And
close.
Yeah. And by IDC is saying that nearly 60% of all PCs worldwide, I mean, AI PCs will represent about 60% of all PCs worldwide by 2027. Now, that's interesting because, and of course, if you look at IDC's numbers, they have excluded the, PCs and workstations with GPUs.
Right.
Yeah, so they've excluded that number. So otherwise, it would have been much higher.
Yeah.
And if you look at the allied kind of announcement, you had Intel's Luna Lake processor. That's the code name for their processor. Then, of course, I think another interesting part is also IDC has, sort of given three kind of types of NPU enabled AI PCs. So one is, of course, the ones which are less than 40, tops, the Tera operating, those numbers that are there, which, so basically tops would give you the performance of this thing, the computer as such. So Tera stands for, I think, 1 trillion, 10 raised to 12. So that means there's so many
teraflops,
trillion operations per second. Now,
Correct.
difficult to wrap your head around those numbers, but it's interesting. So, according to IDC, the NPUs that offer less than 40 trillion operations per second performance, and they typically enable specific AI features
Right.
within apps to run locally. So, Qualcomm, Apple, AMD, etc., Intel are in that category. Then it's 40 to 60 tops performance, and then of course more than 60 tops of
Right.
NPU performance. Now, as of now, no silicon vendor has announced more than 60 trillion operations per second of NPU performance. So I guess it's as of now, we remain in that less than 40 and 40 to 60 kind of thing.
If you remember 20-25 years ago, the PC processors used to have this Intel 386, 486. Okay, there are 486 megahertz, and then Pentium came with 1 gigahertz. That was its speed. It's the same unit. I mean, TOPS is the NPU or the AI chipset unit as far as the hardware is concerned. One thing that you have to know, Leslie, is that, I mean, you just mentioned Forrester and IDC numbers. But the way some of these OEMs and chipset manufacturers or chipset makers work is that, the chipset makers know 2 to 3 years in advance that they're developing these NPUs. And, the OEMs, be it on the smartphone side, be it the Samsungs and the Xiaomis of the world, or on the PC side, the Lenovo's and, IBMs of the world, they get the roadmap of the chipset maker's roadmap when that, particular chipset is coming, which quarter typically. And they also develop, their device roadmaps, okay, because they have to rejig the software at the core level to embed and incorporate a new chipset. So we are seeing the announcements now, but these, as far as OEMs are concerned, these have been, in the making for 1.5, 2 years easily.
Correct, you're
And
right. They have actually put it out publicly also. So Intel's
correct,
chipset roadmap is already out, right, up to
correct,
2030. And all the vendors, as you rightly said, the OEMs, the handset makers basically know about it, all the devices.
correct, correct. And the way I look at it, considering AI was gonna come in, most of these OEMs have incorporated the chipset as a part of their new roadmap. So a lot of their regular device shipments itself would have the new chipset, would have the new NPU. So that's why the numbers all of a sudden look like 10x within a year. But it as far as they are concerned, it's an addition of a new chipset, which is a logical progression any which ways.
Correct. Yeah, but I think most of the sales of these AI enabled PC, because looking at some of the prices, it's all 1 lakh, 1.5 lakhs, etc. That will be, I think, to a certain segment of the population, even within enterprises. Not
Entry
everyone
level
is going
GPU
to have
level.
an AI PC.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as far as
And
the
and early days till the scale of economy is hit, they will be in the 1,500 $2,000 range any which ways.
exactly. I mean, as the prices of chipsets, which is a logical progression, like today, the kind of
Again,
laptop that we're using, say for in Indian rupees, when you're using it for 60,000 and 70,000, we're getting state of the art kind of
true.
laptop, which we couldn't even imagine some years back. But it's interesting, I mean, to watch this. So, of course, I mean, in short, we're saying AI PCs are here, generative AI enabled smartphones are here. So, we're already getting into that. So, the
Generative
dimension
AI
that
enabled Microsoft Office tools are here.
yes, I mean it's AI, and generative AI. Pretty interesting. And even at the 3-day annual Think conference, which has began on 21st of May. Of course, it will go on till 24th of May. So by the time this podcast is over, that IBM Think will also would be over. Even there, Arvind Krishna, who is the chairman and CEO of IBM, he made some interesting announcements. Many of them, centering around the updates to its 1-year-old Watson X platform. So that's pretty. But what sort of caught my attention, which of course, I mean, IBM historically also has been a proponent of, is how to drive enterprise AI at scale with open
Right,
source.
right.
Now, IBM is clearly, gunning for open source. If you notice that the US and all had, there was this that section that was already opposed again to open source,
Open
saying
source,
that
yes.
a lot of other countries will be using it and all. So I like the thing that IBM has firmly stood behind open source. And of course, IBM, Arvind Krishna is known for his stand on,
Yeah.
open source. So it's pretty interesting. Some highlights from the event: I think they have released a family of IBM Granite models. These are ranging between 3 billion and 34 billion parameters. Of course, these are all open source and they have these efficient code LLMs. And that's one part of it. They have launched Instruct Lab, which is a
Mm,
model alignment technique. And this is done jointly with Red Hat, of course. Red
right.
Hat also was one of the proponents of open source before IBM acquired Red Hat. And then, of course, along with that, they have a range of new AI assistants, which is, of course, the topic that we need to now talk about is the whole thing of, because when we are talking about Microsoft
And
announcement
Copilot.
and
Yeah.
the IBM announcements, we cannot but talk about the role of AI agents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
AI agents are, you can see the clear rise of AI agents and what it would mean for contact center.
Contact centers.
I mean, the implications are much, but of course, it's complementary in a lot of ways, but it is also disruptive in many other ways. So, I mean, the way I see it is we have moved from, I mean, we are gradually moving from those rule-based chatbots that we used to
Yeah.
have uh,
Yes.
then to LLM-based chatbots. And suddenly, even before we know, we're talking about AI agents.
Agents for managing better workflows. Okay. Beyond chatbots, managing better workflows in the enterprises across functions. Okay. And this is, if you and I have talked about AI in terms of generations, AI 1.0, AI 2.0, right? 1.0 does the analysis, traditional AI, 2.0 is generative AI, creates. 3.0, we've talked in one of the episodes that is that reasons, right? I think AI agents is somewhere in the 2.5 generation era. Okay, right? It's beyond creating, but not completely reasoning. It's reasoning again in a very in a context in a context based setting. Okay, so AI agents, I think we knew it was again going to be a logical progression, but the way that they are coming, the way the big companies are betting on it, and the way they are expected to impact enterprise AI, development, deployment, and application. The potential is really huge, and in sooner than later, they're going to be all over the place.
But it would be interesting for the viewers and listeners if you can, just basically explain what they do, because everything is all about automating tasks and
Yes.
making it easier to. So what would be a basic difference, say, between an LLM based chatbot and an AI agent as such?
An LLM based chatbot primarily, is for interaction, right? I mean, it's for, answering queries. It's for a specific, again, domain specific interaction. It can be interaction between two parties. It can be a client and a vendor, customer and customer support, or between two other functions. But it's mostly interaction and engagement. It's generation, and narration, generation of text and narration, right? AI agents uses the generation aspect. I mean, it uses the inferencing of generative AI, okay, to essentially build on, the workflow management, okay, which are very specific for different companies, for different functions in different regions and different industries, okay, and lays out a framework to build out, okay, AI enabled or AI assisted, okay, automation of workflows itself. And and workflows, you have to understand, are beyond just narration and interaction and engagement. They get into reasoning, they get into a whole lot of if then else, okay, and complex, and there are layers of complexities involved, while developing and establishing workflows. Now AI agents are developed, keeping in mind to automate the workflows in enterprises, okay, at different levels, and that's
So
why.
it's a very interesting thing that you have said, because this is exactly what I was driving at. That's why I wanted you to explain it for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, because it's extremely important to understand what these AI agents are going to do and how they go so way beyond rule-based chatbots, the LLM-based chatbots, and things. As you rightly said, more. This is not just, we're not just not talking about interaction and generation. We're
Right.
talking about being involved in your workflows, which means that they are going to be virtual human agents. I
Yes.
mean, just think about it. I mean, you may have humans in the loop, but I'm just thinking about, when they're automating all these workflows and they are giving you instructions, they know what the specific tasks are. They're going to tell you what you can do. Because remember, they also have not only predictive powers, they have generative power. They
Yeah,
can tell you what is going to be the next action that you need to take when you're working. So I'm seeing the application, not forget call centers and all are sitting ducks.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
but look at the workflow automation that you can have in a manufacturing sector, in a retail,
exactly.
and everything. So that would be, I'm just thinking of the kind of repercussions that it's going to have. And everybody will, it's so disruptive. It's
Yes.
extremely, it's going to increase your productivity, enhance the efficiency of workflows. But what would it mean, for reskilling and upskilling of labor? That is an interesting uh, I mean, there are
Again,
many kind of jobs that would have to be rethought.
yeah, no, here's the thing. HITL as a framework, right? Human in the loop. Okay. All said and done, to a significant extent, is still the only proven framework at scale as far as training the machines, machine learning, and building AI solutions is concerned. Okay,
Mhm.
HITL still, the scale and the gradients of the human intervention or the human involvement might vary, but that is still going to be there. We talked about it in the first few episodes of our first season. Generative AI came in. What will it mean to a lot of people, copywriters, or people in the paralegals and in the legal industry, researchers in the consulting and the research industry. Okay, and then we talked about how, again, the mundane, the rote work can be taken over by the machines, and the 15-20%, okay, is where the human is required and human value will be there. Now, think of that in a workflow environment. Workflow is a fairly complex, interconnected, layered, environment and a structure. So, in the initial, I mean, definitely in the initial days and years, the human knowledge intervention and human in the loop, definitely working with AI agents, is definitely going to be required. Okay, and slowly, AI agents are going to get intelligent and more capable and going to be taking over. But all these workflows that have been originally thought of, okay, and implemented, and by the management team, have to stay there and get them to bring them up to speed. And we this is still theoretical. We still haven't seen the hallucination version in real time of AI agents, mind
No,
you. Okay,
I'm glad you brought up the subject, because that is exactly what we're going to ask for. Where's
right,
the trust factor?
exactly,
Especially if you're doing it, if you're implementing an AI agent for the banking workflow, for instance, in the
right,
BFSI sector, that trust is extremely important out
right,
there. Any
right,
other kind of sector. So,
right.
I think it's
Let me
it
let
will
me give
take
you
some
one.
time.
Let me give you this one. November 2022, ChatGPT came out. Captured everybody's imagination. 1.5 year later, we still don't have a lot of ChatGPT enabled enterprise chatbots out there completely. Okay, because of hallucination, because of so LLMs have been improving quality wise and capability wise, very rapidly, but enterprises have not been able to entrust even the customer engagement completely to generative AI based chatbots yet. Okay, so if that itself is taking such time, AI agents on paper, yes, they are supposed to work. They are
They will
built to
take a
work the way
lot.
they. Yeah, they will take time.
Yeah, but that maturity does take a lot of time. See, for instance,
Correct.
AI itself, it took about 6, 7 years before it achieved maturity. Gen
True.
AI isn't it for me, it's like too much of a rush to, it. I think maturity of these models do take a lot of time. This is like during the pandemic, we tried to get these in just 6 months when normally it took about 5 years. If you are
Yeah.
trying to compress the time, there are bound to be a lot of mistakes that we do, which may be okay and forgivable, but not in an enterprise sector,
Enterprise setting.
not when we
Yes.
are playing with lives. So
Especially in enterprise setting. Yes.
yeah. So I think during the pandemic, it was very forced because they had to do it. We didn't really have a choice. It was more about saving lives. In
Choice.
in the case of Gen AI, really, we're not
Yeah.
saving anybody's lives. So I think we should be. I mean, that's the reason why we're talking about going a little slow in the enterprise, and which I think is a very fair thing, because at the end of the day, while disruption is moving at a very incredible pace with Gen AI, I think it's also good to, sit back a little, understand these technologies better, understand the impact, and also look at, how you incorporate more humans in the loop. But since we spoke about trust, before we conclude, I would love to hear your opinion on this whole thing about OpenAI and Scarlett Johansson. So,
I know, right? I mean, I found it funny that she took offense for one of the AI bots' voice sounding so much like her. I mean,
yeah.
and it's just voice in today's day and age. Okay, I mean, one should take it as a compliment. I don't know. I think it's just a gimmick. I would pass it as gossip and not pay attention to it.
Yeah,
But
because I think
yeah,
there are many more serious issues to deal with as far as
exactly.
and of
No, but
course,
all said and done, Lucy is one of my favorite movies. I mean, just this morning I was giving a keynote speech at to the global leadership team of a Norwegian company, and I was quoting the movie Lucy there. And what Scarlett Johansson has done, and the message that's been passed using that movie. You and I have a lot of debates, on that movie as well. I guess it's a good thing. So, if OpenAI team even intentionally came up with that, they are actually tapping into a very strong consumer mind recall. If they did actually come up with Scarlett Johansson's voiceover for the bot, because Scarlett Johansson in Lucy and the movie itself was talks a lot about the human machine deep interface and interaction and the potential.
yeah, because now I remember that movie Her, because Altman did
Exactly.
refer to her, but of course
Right.
that movie also is like that whole software operating system that becomes part and parcel. Uh, Interesting. I mean, sci-fi. It's that lovely. Now people write about they write novels like Jules Verne wrote about the novel, and then you had a movie around it. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, if I'm not mistaken, and then
Yeah.
of course, most of the novels of Michael Crichton, etc., have been, converted to movies,
Correct.
and
Correct.
so novels to
No,
sci-fi back into, production.
no.
Where
If art has captured people's imagination, then a technologist using that reference, to make this one, I think it's a marketing gimmick. I mean, if someone has to talk about AI in India, if they put Leslie's face on it, why not? Right?
oh, I would love it. I don't mind
Why
it.
not to make that point?
I'm not Scarlet, so I have no reservations about it. But yes, I mean, they can easily. I was just thinking about it, this whole thing about, scamsters taking my voice and imitating it. Unfortunately or fortunately, we are podcasters also. So everybody has access to a voice. So there's precious little that I'll be
Yes.
able to, dissuade them from. But before we conclude, a small little plug for our viewers and listeners. We have the Mint Digital Innovation on May 24, and it's going to be live streamed. So, in case you're watching this podcast before that, do think, and even if it's later, you can always watch the recorded stream, because
Version.
Jayanth and I both will be speaking at the event. So, and there are plenty of other speakers where many of these concepts will be clarified further, and we'll have a lot more examples about how companies are actually implementing AI, Gen AI, and how do they seek, return on investment, more importantly, from these things, instead of, just putting the cart before the horse. So that's exactly. So, Jayant, have a lovely weekend, and see you at the event before that.
You too, Leslie. I'll catch you in Mumbai for the event in person.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.